Evie was, she did a program for the Genealogy Society, and she brought up the fact that her great-great-grandfather, of whom she's going to speak today, is also a Civil War veteran.
My name is Evie Slater. I was born Evelyn Marie Hernandez, and I am the great-granddaughter of Alexis Godey. My son Chaos is the great-great-grandson of Alexis Godey, and his son is the great-great-great-grandson of Alexis Godey. Alexis Godey was born January 28th, and he's also known as Alexis Godey, Alejandro Godoy, Alexander Godey, Alec Godey, and J.J. Lopez referred to him as Old Godey. These were said of Alexis Godey through various newspapers and articles on Godey. In 1862 through 1864, records of Indian affairs in Washington, D.C. He was a superintendent of Indians at the Tejon Reservation. He had a remarkable character. He was a man who deteriorated under civilized conditions. He always lived in the wilderness until his older age. He had no law but his own. He had Voyager blood in his veins. He believed life was for living. He had remarkable courage, determination, and endurance. He was liked by Indians. He spoke English, French, Spanish, and several native languages. He was exceptionally handsome and striking. He had piercing eyes, jet black curly hair. He spoke with a French accent. He could grin the bark off a tree. He delighted with the beautiful girls the good God had sprinkled liberally upon the earth. And I'm sure if you read about Godey, you've heard about his 5 wives and 8 mistresses that they've been able to account for. My great-grandmother was one of his lady friends. That was Apollonia Calzadillo. Alec was a good cook. He could cook wild game better than anybody. He did fine copy of browned acorns. His house was always open to anybody that needed a place to stay. Godey raised Porfirio Valencia. Little Valencia was 6 or 7 years old at the time. He also raised Billy Skinner. Godey loved to play cards for drinks or cigars. He played the game cards Pedro, hearts, and Spanish whist. He also had an occasional bet. One in particular that he liked to talk about was there was a game between LA and Bakersfield. And the Bakersfield people all gathered on a line and went to LA. Well, he overheard someone commenting on, why did Bakersfield even show up? They know LA's going to win. Well, Godey being Godey, bet $100 in silver.
Wow, that's a lot,
and everybody looked at him like he was crazy. Well, word got back to the Bakersfield team, and I'll be darned if they didn't win that game. He also would bet occasionally on racehorses. He was friends with Mr. Dumble, who had a racehorse. Well, his first race, Godey made the bet and won. So Godey devised a plan. They put burrs in this horse's tail, in his mane, and got dirt and mud and just covered up the horse so that it looked like a completely different horse. Well, needless to say, the horse ran and won again. So Godey won that bet. And that story is a particular one that Godey loves to tell. Fremont said this: Godey was a Creole Frenchman of St. Louis of medium height with black eyes and silky curling black hair, which was his pride. In all situations, he had that care of his person which good looks encourages. Once, when with us in Washington, he was at a concert. Immediately behind him sat the wife of the French minister, Madame Paget, who was sitting with another lady. And the other lady, who was behind Godey, says to her friend, Madame, she says, "C'est ton carreau." And that means, that's the wig. Because Godey's hair was so thick and so beautiful. Well, Godey, hearing this and being proud of his hair, turns around and says, "Pardon, Madame, c'est bien à moi. That is my hair." Ha! She was indignant, and she turned away and never spoke a word after that. The ladies were silent as suddenly as the touch of a tree trunk fell in the woods. So what did this man do? What did he accomplish? Or should I say, what didn't he accomplish? Godey was born in 1818. My grandfather, who is pictured in the lower one there, his son, was born in 1875. My mother was born in 1926, and I was born in 1954. Don't do the math, I'm 69. I became interested in gathering information because my mother basically raised us, my brother and I. You know, he's your great-grandfather, and she would show us articles and talk to us about him. Now, the information I've acquired has been through probably at least 3 decades, searching articles and newspaper clippings. Now, Alexis Godey, as I said, was born January 28th. He was born in Fort de Chartres, Randolph, Illinois, USA. He was not born in Missouri, but in a French fort. His father was Jean-Marie Godey. His mother was Celeste Lecour. 7 to 10 years prior to 1843, at the age of 15 during those years, Godey had hooked up with, I forgot his name. Anyway, he hooked up with, I'll find it. His first name is Benjamin. Benjamin Bonneville. Has anybody heard of Bonneville?
Salt flats.
Yeah. So he hooked up with Benjamin Bonneville and we went hunting for the forts and he stayed with Benjamin Bonneville up until about 1943. It was then that Godey met Colonel Fremont. While Fremont was on his expedition, Godey was described at the time by Charles Prius, who was a topographer with Fremont's expedition, as a young French Canadian who could neither read nor write. But he did not enjoy the spreadings of his activities. Because he could not read nor write and didn't boast about what he was doing, he never wrote anything down. All about him has been basically done through Fremont and Kit Carson's ventures. Now, in 1844, Kit Carson and Alexis Godey were doing a winter crossing through the snow-covered Sierra Nevada. They reached Sutter's Fort in southern San Joaquin Valley and landed in Kern County. During that, when they were crossing over the Sierras, the cold and the snow were so bad, many did not survive. Food became very scarce, if at all. And Godey prompted, and they ended up eating horse and dog meat to sustain themselves. In 1845, Godey joined Fremont on Fremont's third expedition. Alexander Godey led a life of extreme adventure. He had summer rendezvous and trips on the Green River in present-day Wyoming. Godey set out on one of the premier expeditions of the 19th century far west. Sometime in the late 1830s, after the golden age of fur trapping was nearing its end, Alexis Godey was employed as hunter at Fort String, a trapping outpost near the site of present-day Denver. Godey was known as an expert marksman with a rifle, and his job was to supply fresh meat, bear, deer, and mountain goat for the fort's garrison. And then it was after that Godey hooked up with Fremont. In 1846, during the Mexican-American War, Godey served for the U.S., reaching the rank of lieutenant under the unit of Captain Richard Owens. Godey was captured at San Pascual in San Diego under General Andres Pico, and Carson went to retrieve Godey. Now, also in around 1848, in between those times, in 1849, Godey built the well house. You can still see it in the Kern County Museum. How many are familiar with the well house? He had that built, Godey did, as a wedding present for Mr. Well and his wife. In 1849, Godey discovered gold flakes, prospecting in Rancho's waterways. Gold was plentiful. Fremont made the claim, later known as the Mariposa Mine. Godey operated a ferry in Fireball, which is around Fresno, and when my son and I went to pick up the box, we passed through Fireball. In 1853, Godey, now at the age of about 34, was in Four Creeks, which is Visalia, and was engaged by Lieutenant Williamson of the Pacific Railroad from Texas. And he joined up with him as a guide to Walker Pass through the southern Sierra Nevadas. Also during this time, Godey was employed by the Indian Service awaiting Beale. Sometime during this phase, Godey became well engaged with the natives, the Indians there. And he would join them in their celebrations. And he would paint himself up, put on moccasins, and dance for hours with them. And not only that, he was known to ride horseback, bare-bodied. He was a free man, free spirit. Godey was the scout for Kit Carson on his last visit to Kern County. In 1856, Godey located his ranch in Cuyama next to San Emilio Ranch, then lost it in a court battle. In 1856, the United States presidential election, Godey, who was supporting Fremont, who was running against Buchanan, well, he got all the Indians to cast their vote for Fremont, thinking, oh, surely this will put him over the edge. Well, he trusted this person that he handed these votes to, so that when all the votes were counted, all the votes they had for Fremont went to Buchanan. And I'm sure he was not happy about that. Godey served in the Civil War, Union Company F, 50th Infantry. He was a Union Provost Marshal. Godey lived in San Emilio, and he used Indian labor to improve the grounds and vicinity of the ranch. Well, every time Godey would leave the ranch, the Indians would end up doing half the work. So the foreman came to him and said, what are we going to do? And his foreman, who had a glass eye, said, take your eye out and put it on the stone. So he took his eye out, he put it on the stone, and the Indians seen this eye staring at them constantly. And they said, make him put it back, make him put it back. We promise we'll do the work. Well, the work doubled. And they had no problem with him doing the work at that point. Godey met in Bakersfield to consider founding a Catholic church. In 1883, Godey moved to Bakersfield and located on 19th Street, what later became known as the Godey Tract. Godey was about 64 years old at the time. Godey was one of the pallbearers for Mr. Edward Beale. The death of Alexis Godey was in all the papers. And I said, this is one of my favorite. One of the most noted of the pioneers of the far west and of California gone to join the majority. Alexis Godey, one of the most trusted and efficient guides of General Fremont on the second and third of his exploring expeditions. Godey and Carson were of the best type of the men who pioneered the Great West. Their like will never be seen again within our national limits because the conditions which developed them are no more. New facts of their strange and adventurous lives may gradually be discovered, and they will live among our most interesting historical characters of ages to come. Now, in 1887, February 1st, to Hurlbut Post 127, the GAR minutes reflected. Conrad Burnham, on behalf of the admin of the late Alexis Godey, and in compliance with the will of said Godey, presents to Hurlbut Post 4 flags, one of which had been presented to said Godey by General Sherman's daughter. The other 3 flags have been presented to said Godey at different times by parties at present unknown. Godey is buried at Union Cemetery. How many are familiar with where Godey's buried? Oh, you've got to go.
He's in Union Cemetery?
Yes, ma'am. He is near Thomas Baker.
Yeah.
Very near Thomas Baker. And he has one of those tall, obelisk monuments to him. It used to have a black fencing around it, but they took that down several years ago. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the box. The box I had seen, years ago in the book by Frank Lotta, but I never dreamed that I would acquire it. Le Boyette Godey, that's French for Godey's box. Mr. Lotta started collecting and researching at about the age of 14. He helped founded the Kern County Museum. I did not know that. Did you ladies know? Yeah. He was very instrumental in founding the museum. And that was in 1941. He also wrote many books and papers, one of which is the Sago of Rancho of El Tejon, into which you'll find that page. So it was about a couple days after I gave the presentation, the Genealogy Society, that everybody said, oh, I've seen that box. Well, a couple of them, I've seen that box, I've touched that box. And little did I know that they had contacted Mr. Chris Brewer, who is the great-great-grandson of Colonel Baker. And I got a message from him the next day asking me if I wanted the box. And I was running to my son, oh, we gotta go get it, we gotta go. I said, well, we can see if we can get it through this person or send it through that person. My son said, I'm taking you tomorrow. So he took me, we picked up the box. Now this particular box, I'm guessing, began to be Godey's property in about 1840. So that would make it approximately 183 years old, give or take a few years. Now, Frank Lauder received the box from a Mrs. Hathaway. It is defined as a shallow box, oak box, in which Alexis Godey kept his letters and papers and deeds. When he died, they found $3,000 in gold in the box. However, when I got it, it was empty, but glad I got the box. Mr. Lauder had retrieved that box, then gave it to Chris Brewer, who kept it at the Bear State Library. Now, for a couple of years, I wondered, where is this Bear State Library? Where is this Bear State Museum? And I hunted, and it was Chris Brewer, the whole time, who lived in
Early Mark.
no, not early Mark, Exeter.
Yeah.
Oh,
Excellent. One of those towns up there with an E.
Yeah, he lived in Exeter. So as I said, Chris Brewer received it from Mr. Lauder. Mr. Lauder then gave it to me. And it's now home with family. Any questions? Yes?
You said you had 5 wives and 8 girlfriends? How did you
Oh,
have
that's
time?
what people knew of.
How did you have time for all that?
Let me tell you, he had more time than that because he had, forgive me, great grandfather, but he had several lady friends.
So there's 5 wives, did they die in childbirth or something, or what? How many?
Well, most of them ended in divorce.
Divorce. Ooh,
I can understand that with 8 mistresses.
Well, actually, they all ended in divorce. A couple of them died afterwards for, for whatever reason. One was burnt in a fire. And his mistresses, he had many.
Many, huh?
Many, including my great-grandmother.
You have any children?
He had 3 noted children. My grandfather, was not listed, as that was one of the side chicks, if you will. Okay. But yeah, he had 3. One of them, there was a previous Alexis Godey Jr. He died at the age of 19, I think, of the flu, if I remember correctly. And there was another one that died, and I don't know what happened to the other one. But like I said, my grandfather, that's pictured with my grandmother, Nicolosa Frances Munoz. Okay? Now, she was Native American combined with where they lived in Mexico. Now, this is my mother.
That's your mother?
That's my mother.
With the grandmother?
With her mother.
Yeah.
And this is Alexandria, her sister, who died at a taller age.
And the man with the glasses?
That's Alexis Godey Jr., the second one, the one that's not noted. That's my grandfather.
So did you try to find DNA or?
I went, actually, I not only searched and found, but there's records beginning with Mom, who listed Alexis Godey Jr. as her father. And also, I hired a professional genealogist from Ancestry, who did the connection also. So that's how I knew.
So she was one of his girlfriends?
No, this is Junior. He's the result of the girlfriend, an old man Godey. Okay? So he was the one that was like put aside, and Mom told me that his mother would not really allow Alex Godey Sr. to see him when he was a child. And one of the few stories that my grandfather told my mom was that he could remember that his father, Alexis Godey Sr., came over and had like a squeeze box and would sing in French to him.